The steady hum of tires on asphalt was a sound Derek Langley knew better than his own heartbeat. Long hauls through lonely stretches of highway had become his rhythm, and mile markers had replaced calendar dates in his mind. Sleep came in irregular bursts. His meals were usually from truck stop microwaves, and the road, cold and unfeeling, was the only constant that never judged him, never asked for more. But he didn't mind the grind. Derek was a man who believed in duty. He came from nothing, no safety net, no father to teach him how to be one. And so he built his life like a fortress, one long mile at a time, for his wife Lisa and their 6-year-old boy Jalen. He took pride in providing. Rent was paid on time. Lights stayed on. Jalen had uniforms, birthday parties, and toys that Derek never got to enjoy himself as a child. And Lisa, she didn't have to work. That was his doing, his sacrifice. Every ache in his back, every hour behind the wheel, every missed holiday, school event, and late-night phone call, it was all for them. When he pulled into the driveway on a humid Friday evening, he could already feel the weight of it. He'd been gone 12 days on a cross-country run, 4 states, 2 missed FaceTimes, a busted AC in the cab. But what mattered was this moment, coming home. He grabbed his duffel from the back seat, took a deep breath, and opened the door to the house he paid for. Lisa was at the dining table, mail spread out like war documents, envelopes torn, numbers circled, and her brows pinched like they always were when he walked through the door. "Hey," he said, offering a tired smile. "Hey," she replied, barely looking up. No kiss, no, "I missed you." Just a flick of her pen and a sigh. He placed his bag down, leaned in, and kissed her on the cheek anyway. 10 minutes later, he was in the kitchen, holding a stack of envelopes she'd handed him like a to-do list. "The light bill's up again. The car insurance needs to be paid this week. Jalen needs cleats. His feet grew again. And I told you the fridge is acting up, right?" Derek nodded, pressing his tongue into his cheek. "Yeah, I'll get on it." Lisa poured herself a glass of wine, turned her back, and added casually, "Also, my cousin's throwing a baby shower in Atlanta next month. I'd like to go." "How long?" he asked. 4 days, maybe 5. He did the math silently. Gas, hotel, gifts, new dress, babysitter if her mom couldn't take Jalen. "All right," he said. "We'll figure it out." Later that night, Derek tucked Jalen into bed. The boy wrapped his arms around his father's neck like he was still small enough to believe that hugs fixed everything. "I missed you, Daddy," he whispered. Derek closed his eyes. "I missed you more." He stayed there long after Jalen drifted off, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of the house he paid for, but no longer felt at home in. Lisa was in the bedroom, scrolling on her phone under the glow of the lamp. She didn't look up when he walked in. "Long trip?" she asked flatly. "Yeah," he said, pulling off his boots. "You'll be back out again next week?" He nodded. "Colorado run. Might be gone 9 days." She didn't say anything else. No, "be safe." No, "that sucks." Just the flick of her thumb across a screen, chasing something more interesting than the man who bled himself dry for this life. Derek climbed into bed next to her, eyes fixed on the ceiling, wondering when love had turned into a utility bill. The next morning, Derek was on the porch drinking his coffee before the sun came up. The old rocking chair creaked beneath him, the wood weathered like his hands. This was his ritual. A quiet moment before the house stirred, before Jalen asked for cartoons and waffles, before Lisa reminded him about the money he owed to the world. But this morning was different. The silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt distant. Lisa came out 30 minutes later, robed tight, eyes on her phone. "You heading out to get the oil changed?" she asked, not even glancing his way. Derek sipped his coffee and nodded. "Yeah." "Don't forget Jalen's cleats. Size 1 now, I think." He blinked. "Didn't we just buy him new ones?" "He grew," she said simply, walking back inside. "No thank you. No warmth. Just another task on the checklist." At the store, Derek stood in the youth shoe aisle, staring at a wall of cleats, trying to remember when Jalen had even worn the last pair. He paid for them anyway, paid for everything. But as he stood at the register, something started to tug at the corners of his mind, a feeling he'd been trying to ignore. It wasn't one thing, it was everything. The accumulation, the way Lisa didn't look at him when he walked in the room, the way her voice lacked music, the fact that she hadn't touched him, really touched him, in months. He tried to shake it. Tried. Later that day, they went to Jalen's Pop Warner game. Derek cheered from the bleachers, smiling like a proud father should. He yelled encouragement, clapped when his boy made a solid run, and laughed with the other parents who had no idea he'd just driven 3,000 miles in 2 weeks. Lisa sat 2 rows down from him, not beside him, not with him. Next to her was Coach Ron, tall, fit, young, a little too familiar. He leaned in close when he spoke to her. She laughed at something he said. Derek watched it happen like a slow-motion train wreck. Lisa tilting her head, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, her eyes lit up in a way they hadn't when he walked through the door just yesterday. Ron patted Jalen on the head as the boy ran by. "Great game, buddy!" he shouted. Jalen beamed. Lisa smiled. Derek clenched his jaw. That night, Lisa said she was going out for drinks with a couple of the football moms. She wore heels, red lipstick, perfume. He hadn't smelled in months. "You sure it's just moms?" he asked, keeping his tone even. She froze for a second. Just one beat. "Yeah, why?" "No reason." She didn't kiss him goodbye, didn't even look back. Derek sat in the kitchen long after the door closed behind her, hands folded on the table, staring at the untouched leftovers he brought home. Something shifted inside him that night. A subtle click. Not rage, not paranoia, just awareness. Derek didn't bring it up. Not the lipstick. Not the way she smiled differently when she texted someone and didn't want him to see. Not the silence that followed her laughter when she walked back through the door after midnight smelling like wine and cologne that wasn't his. He didn't say a word. Instead, he watched. It started with the little things. Lisa had always been a little scattered, left the laundry half folded, forgot to unplug the iron, but lately, everything was perfect. Too perfect. The house was spotless. Jalen's lunches were packed with extra care. The bedroom, once cluttered with her clothes and hair ties and half-read magazines, now looked untouched between his visits home, like it had been cleaned and then abandoned. Even the sheets had changed. New set, Egyptian cotton. He noticed, but didn't ask. The next time Derek left for a route, he didn't kiss Lisa goodbye. He kissed Jalen on the forehead, told him to be good, and drove off like usual, except this time he didn't go far. He parked 2 blocks away and waited. Sure enough, less than 2 hours later, a familiar car pulled into his driveway. Ron's, Coach Ron. Derek's hands gripped the steering wheel tight, knuckles white, but he didn't move. Not yet. Back on the road a few days later, he thought about it over and over. What he saw, what it meant, what he felt. It wasn't jealousy, not entirely. It wasn't just rage either. It was the weight of everything. Every year he'd spent chasing the next paycheck, trying to be enough, trying to hold it all together. Every night he'd slept in the cab of a truck so Lisa could sleep in a warm bed. Every dollar earned, every meal skipped, every lonely mile traveled. For them. And now, this? Coach Ron? A man who saw him only on Saturdays and somehow found a way into the space Derek had built with his bare hands. He didn't act on impulse. He thought. He planned. The next time he came home, he said nothing. But before he left again, he stopped at a hardware store. Tiny cameras, motion sensors, cloud storage. He installed everything with a steady hand, one in the hallway, one in the living room, one, well hidden, in the corner of their bedroom closet, tucked just behind an old shoebox she never touched. He synced them all to his phone, double encrypted, and then he left, for work, like he always did. But this time, he took her trust with him. and waited. The cab of Derek's truck was dark, lit only by the faint blue glow of his dashboard and the soft flicker of his phone screen. He was parked at a rest stop off I-70 in Colorado, the sky outside a blank sheet of black. His shift had ended hours ago, but he hadn't slept. Couldn't, because the notification had come. Motion detected. Master bedroom, 9:26 p.m. He stared at it for a moment, thumb hovering above the screen. Then he tapped. The live feed opened. The camera was angled just right, enough to see the corner of the bed, the dresser, the edge of the mirror on the closet door. Nothing moved at first, just empty space, still and silent. Then the bedroom door opened. Lisa walked in. Not in pajamas, not in her usual robe. She was dressed up. Tight jeans, heels, her hair curled the way she used to do it when she was trying to impress him. She stood at the foot of the bed and checked her reflection, fixed her lipstick. And then he appeared. Ron. Coach Ron. Smiling, laughing. His hand grazed the small of her back like it had done it before, like it belonged there. They kissed, not awkward, not new, familiar. Lisa said something and they both laughed. Full, open laughter, the kind she hadn't shared with Derek in years. Then the clothes came off. Derek watched it all, every second. He watched them collapse into the bed he paid for, the mattress he'd hauled up 2 flights of stairs when Lisa was pregnant with Jalen. They made love in his sheets, in his home, in the heart of everything he'd built. Derek didn't move. His breathing didn't change. His jaw didn't clench. He watched until the screen went dark, the motion stopping as they drifted into sleep together. Then he closed the app, placed the phone down gently on the dashboard, and stared out into the emptiness of the open road. In his chest, something hollowed out, not just betrayal, not just heartbreak, but clarity. He knew now. There was no coming back from this. There was no fixing it. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate, coordinated, rehearsed, and when a man gives everything to the people he loves and they spit on it, there are only 2 things left to do: let it go or end it. And Derek had already given up enough. The whistle blew, and Jalen's team rushed off the field in a storm of cheers and high fives. It had been a good game. Jalen scored twice, and Derek had clapped louder than anyone in the stands. He stood at the edge of the field near the bench, sunglasses on, arms folded across his chest, watching the kids line up for snacks. Lisa was there too, pretending like everything was fine. She waved to Derek from a distance with a tight, performative smile, camera phone in hand, always ready to capture a moment that looked like family. And then came Ron, whistle around his neck, clipboard under one arm, striding toward Derek like they were old friends. "Big game today, huh?" Ron said, slapping him lightly on the back. "Jalen's turning into a beast out there." Derek looked him over. Ron was a few years younger, too confident, tan, trim. He had the look of a man who'd been praised too much for doing too little. And now he stood here, right in front of the husband of the woman he was screwing, grinning like he owned the world. "Appreciate you working with him," Derek said evenly. Ron grinned wider. "That boy's got natural talent. You can't coach that. But Lisa's been keeping me in the loop. We talk about Jalen a lot." Derek kept his face still. "Yeah, I imagine y'all talk about a lot of things." Ron chuckled, that smug, easygoing laugh. And then it happened. He looked Derek right in the eye, and there was a flicker, a subtle gleam, like a silent dare, a "you don't know what I know" kind of look. But Derek did know. He had seen the videos, the kisses, the way Lisa melted under Ron's touch. He'd watched them laugh in the very bed he'd bled himself dry to afford. And now this man, this coward, was standing in front of him, smiling like he was winning some kind of silent game. Derek smiled back, just a little, just enough to mask the fire boiling under his skin. "Appreciate you," he said again, voice calm. "Means a lot, you helping out my family like this." Ron nodded, clueless to the slow, cold calculation happening behind Derek's sunglasses. "Anytime, man," he said. "You've got a great family." Derek watched him walk off, shoulders squared, bounce in his step, like nothing could touch him. And that's what made Derek sick. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the performance. The arrogance of a man who thought he could sleep with another man's wife, play with another man's child, and smile in that man's face like it didn't matter. But it mattered. And the next time they spoke, there wouldn't be any smiles. Derek spent the next few days on the road, but he wasn't thinking about delivery schedules or fuel costs. He drove in silence, the low rumble of the engine a steady backdrop to the thoughts spinning through his mind like loose bolts. He replayed that smile, Ron's smile, over and over. How casually it had been delivered, how brazen, like the man had no fear, no shame, like he believed he could live inside Derek's life, take what he'd built, and walk away clean. But Derek wasn't a man to leave messes lying around. He returned home without warning, earlier than scheduled. Lisa looked surprised when he walked through the door. "You're back already?" she asked, smoothing her shirt and tucking her phone beneath a throw pillow. "Load got canceled," he said, setting his bag down. "Figured I'd come home, spend time with my boy." She nodded. "He'll be happy. He's got practice later today." "Yeah," Derek said, eyes never leaving hers. "I bet he does." That evening, Derek sat at the dining table and watched Lisa move around the kitchen. She smiled more when she didn't think he was looking. Hummed to herself. She seemed lighter, brighter. She was in love with someone else. And he knew it. Still, he said nothing. Not yet. After Jalen went to bed, Derek stepped into the garage and opened the old lockbox he kept tucked behind his tool chest. Inside were the backups, USBs, memory cards, time-stamped folders from every recording. The evidence was all there. He didn't even have to watch it again. He remembered it frame by frame. He stared at the files, not with rage, but with purpose. He copied the videos to a burner drive and tucked it into the glove compartment of his truck. He began taking smaller loads, shorter routes. He wanted to be nearby, close enough to monitor the patterns. He started journaling their routines. When Lisa left, when Ron came by, how long he stayed, when the cameras caught motion and when they didn't. Everything had a rhythm, every betrayal, a schedule, and Derek was a man who knew how to follow a schedule to the second. He didn't drink, didn't lose sleep. He simply prepared. Picked up ammo at a rural sporting goods store under the pretense of going hunting that fall. Renewed his gun license quietly, online. Cleaned his registered firearm with the same methodical attention he gave to his rig's engine. He told no one, showed nothing. And all the while, Lisa laughed and scrolled and kissed Jalen on the forehead like she hadn't already set fire to the home Derek had worked his whole life to build. One night, he stood in the doorway of Jalen's room and watched his son sleep. The little boy clutched a football in one arm and murmured something about winning in his dreams. Derek's eyes welled up. He wasn't a violent man, he wasn't reckless, but some betrayals didn't deserve clean endings. Some lies had to be buried. And what Ron took wasn't just a woman. It was respect, it was honor, and it would be paid for. In full. It was a Thursday, ordinary, the kind of day people never remember until something unforgettable happens. Derek had already mapped it out. Lisa thought he was headed to a 2-day haul down to Texas, but his rig sat parked at the far end of a truck stop, engine cold. He was only 2 miles from home. He wore gloves, not to avoid fingerprints. His name was on the mortgage, on the bedroom furniture, on the title of the truck. No, the gloves were for ritual, for control. This wasn't chaos. This was precision. Lisa had told him the week before that Jalen would be at her sister's for the night. "Just for fun," she said, "so I can catch up on laundry and maybe relax a little." Derek knew better. Ron would be coming over. Same time, same pattern. He parked one street over and walked the rest of the way. The neighborhood was quiet, suburban and safe, the kind of place people move to when they think the worst of life happens to other people. Porch lights flickered on. A dog barked in the distance. Inside his house, Their house. Derek saw the silhouettes moving. 2 of them. Her laugh cut through the evening like a blade. He waited until the light in the bedroom clicked off, waited until the motion alert buzzed in his pocket. Then he moved. The front door had never needed a key. He walked in like he still lived there, because he did. The house smelled like candles and something cheap and floral, her attempt to cover the scent of another man. It made him sick. He moved down the hallway quietly, his heart not racing, his breath steady. Every step felt final, every second preordained. He opened the bedroom door. Lisa screamed. Ron sat up instantly, shirtless, confused, mouth half open. "What the hell?" Derek raised the pistol. 1 shot. Ron dropped back against the headboard, eyes wide, frozen in the last stupid thing he was ever going to say. Lisa screamed again, scrambled backward across the bed like she didn't recognize her own husband. "Derek, no, please!" She reached for the phone. He fired again. She collapsed beside the man she chose over everything Derek had built. Silence, just silence. Derek stood there for a moment, the gun hanging in his hand, his jaw locked so tight it ached. He looked around the room, the photos, the curtains, the neatly folded laundry on the chair. Everything still pretending it was normal. But it never had been. He didn't run. He didn't call anyone. He walked out of the house, got back into his truck, and drove to the police station 4 towns over. He placed the weapon on the counter, said 6 words. "My wife and her lover are dead." The story spread like wildfire. Trucker, husband kills wife, and Pop Warner coach in alleged love triangle. Small-town family man snaps after discovering wife's affair. Every headline twisted the same truth into something sensational. Cable news debated the morality. Podcasts picked it apart. Social media split down the middle. Some called Derek a monster, others a man pushed too far, but no one knew the full story. No one knew what it was like to drive 3,000 miles with nothing but silence and sacrifice. No one knew the weight of providing for a home that had already let you go. Derek never fought the charges. His lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, temporary insanity. But Derek never asked for sympathy, never made excuses. The courtroom was quiet the day he read his statement. He didn't weep, didn't lash out. He simply said, "I gave everything I had to my family, and when I found out it wasn't enough, I lost what little I had left inside me. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I'm asking for understanding." The judge gave him 38 years, second-degree murder on both counts. Eligible for parole in 25. Jalen went to live with Lisa's sister. He didn't come to the trial. Too young, too confused. Derek had asked his lawyer to pass along one thing. Tell him I love him, that he was always the best thing in my life. That was the hardest part. Not the bars, not the sentence, not the silence of prison, but knowing his son, the boy he built his life around, would one day hear what he did, would have to reconcile the father who taught him to tie his shoes with the man who pulled a trigger in cold blood. Years passed. The headlines faded. The world moved on. But in the quiet corners of America, at truck stops and loading docks and dimly lit motel bars, men still whispered Derek Langley's name. Not as a hero, not as a villain, but as a man who cracked under the unbearable weight of being taken for granted. A cautionary tale in steel-toed boots, a legend written in heartbreak. The end.